Welcome to Yelling from the Couch. I'm Brent Humphreys. On this week's episode, I interview Gus Martin from the Star Press, Ball State athletics reporter, as we preview the UK Ball State football matchup this Saturday at 12 o'clock from Kroger Field. Gus talks about the roster, key players to watch, key injuries for Ball State, how they match up against UK, and if he thinks that Ball State can pull off the upset at Kroger Field this Saturday and what it would take for them to do that. And then I want to thank him for coming on the podcast this week. Check him out. Go follow him at Gus Martin _SP on X. Stick around and enjoy the episode. We'll be right back with Gus Martin. At this time, I'd like to welcome in from the Star Press Ball State athletics reporter, Gus Martin. Welcome in, Gus.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So I'm going to preview the Ball State-Kentucky matchup for this Saturday. Ball's back in. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been getting the football itch over the last couple of weeks for college and NFL, so definitely ready to see some action over the weekends. It was getting a little bit boring in the summer, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it is. Talking season's about over with, and with this weather here, I know here in Kentucky it's feeling like football weather this week, so it's really getting me into it.
Yeah, we've been getting a little bit cooler up here in Indiana, but I think it's supposed to heat back up in the next week or so. So might be a little bit tough for the guys, but I'm sure once fall hits, it'll be kind of that perfect football weather.
Yeah, hopefully Saturday maybe they'll keep that fall around for the game Saturday.
Hopefully.
We'll see. So what are the expectations for Ball State after coming off a 5-7 season last year and losing key pieces from both sides of the ball? I know their quarterback transferred to Illinois and the running back transferred to UCLA.
Yeah, well, I think last year the team and a lot of fans feel that they kind of left a lot on the table. They 5-7 was not where they probably should have been. They probably could have won at least 2 more games, but they just lost a lot of one possession games in the fourth quarter. Had a lot of issues with their quarterback and passing game overall. A lot of turnovers in the red zone, especially. So yeah, they had a great running back who's now at UCLA, but I think the team overall is pretty optimistic this year. I mean, they brought back a lot of key experienced veterans and added some pieces like the new quarterback, Lane Hatcher, who I think he's like top 10, top 5 in the country in just counting stats in terms of passing yards and passing touchdowns. Very experienced guy. So I think they're optimistic. I think they probably are maybe being projected a little bit lower than I think I would have them. I think they could do damage, but it's really up to them and their execution. So I think they should be solid at the very least.
You mentioned Lane Hatcher. He's transferred from Texas State, I believe. He's played a few different places. He won the quarterback competition over. Was it a true freshman that he won it over?
Yeah, true freshman Caden Samaza. The quarterback competition actually originally was between Hatcher and redshirt sophomore Kyle Kelly, who's a bit of like a dual threat guy, very athletic. And then the true freshman really just kind of shined, throughout training camp and kind of took over that second QB position. And honestly, in my opinion, at the practices I went to, he was even better than Lane Hatcher, I would say overall. But I don't think they were going to ever start a true freshman against teams like Kentucky and Georgia to start the season. So but Lane did improve throughout camp. He started off kind of a little bit shaky in my opinion, just didn't look quite comfortable pushing the ball down the field, but by the last practice I went to, he seemed a lot better rapport with the new receivers.
Yeah, starting the season off at Kentucky and Georgia the first 2 weeks, it would be very difficult for a true freshman just to be thrown in there. So I could see why they went with the grad transfer there to start the season off.
Yeah, for sure. But that young guy is definitely very talented, and he's kind of a gunslinger. I would not be surprised if he got some game action later in the year.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you think maybe they would have some packages for him in this Kentucky game coming up?
No, I would be really surprised if he played at all. Now the third string quarterback, they say they're going to kind of use him in like sort of a gadget role. I don't know exactly what that entails. They've kind of closed off practices over the last week or so as to not give anything away, I guess, to the opponent. But the third string quarterback is like arguably the team's most athletic player. So if he's out on the field, whether he's catching a pass or doing like some sort of trick play where he's throwing or even just a sweep or something, he can definitely do damage. So I think he will get on the field at least a couple times.
Kelly.
Yes.
Talking about they lost 3 DBs to the NFL. What's the secondary looking like this year?
Yeah, so the one returning starter they have is Jordan Riley, who's arguably the best safety in the MAC. He was the only player in the conference last year to have over 70 total tackles and 10 pass deflections. He's only a junior, so he's a really good leader for his age. Very well spoken, very smart. I think he's really kind of galvanized the new unit, if you will. And he's actually the youngster of the group, surprisingly. All the other guys are seniors or redshirt seniors. The cornerback, Tyler Red Potts, is a guy who started a few games last year behind a player who was actually drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs, Nick Jones. And so he's kind of waited his turn in this program for several years to kind of be a full-time starter. And I think he's very capable of filling that role successfully. And then two other guys. The other starting quarterback is Damian Charity from Old Dominion. Never actually really started much there in his 4 seasons, and I think he even took a year off from football. But he is a guy with great length and size, and I think I was personally kind of surprised that he actually won out the starting corner job. But I think the team really kind of likes his physical attributes and competitiveness, and I think maybe he's kind of found a home where he can kind of thrive here at Ball State, and then the other safety alongside Jordan Riley is Strickland, who started his career at University of Indianapolis before coming to the program last year and being a backup. And I think him kind of sitting last year and learning what the coaches want from him, I think will make his transition to a starter a little bit easier. So definitely a lot of experience, the veterans, despite being a new group. But I think just chemistry-wise is where they'll need to grow. Showed some good stuff throughout camp, but I could see them having some miscues here and there early in the season, maybe a couple of breakdowns as they kind of get familiar with each other.
Yeah, and Kentucky's got a pretty good receiving core too to go against them, so that'd be a tough matchup for them in the first week of the season.
Yeah, definitely. That was something I identified yesterday when I was kind of doing like a little breakdown of the matchup. Kentucky's offense certainly seems poised to have a good year, bringing back their offensive coordinator, bringing in a new quarterback who had success, and then, like you said, very good playmakers outside. So I think, that'll definitely be a tough test for this new look Ball State secondary. But at the same time, I think for them individually as they get later in the season, I think it can only help them.
Who are some notable players to watch out for Ball State on both sides of the ball?
For sure. So offensively, I think they have two starting running backs, but the guy who will probably get the most run is Kent State transfer Marquez Cooper, right behind Carson Steele last year for Ball State. I mean, at Kent State, he was the second leading rusher in the MAC. He's a small guy, but very quick, good burst of speed, stocky, strong, competitive, confident, can catch the ball. I think he's a guy who's really exciting and will kind of slot right in to fill Carson Steele's place here at Ball State as a runner, and their offensive line's pretty good, so he should have running lanes. And then his co-starter Vaughn Pemberton, I think, is someone who's probably going to sneak up on a lot of people this year. He's a bigger back, but he's really, really good at running routes and pass catching. You might even see him lining up, in the slot as a receiver. So they're kind of a little bit of a dual threat out of the backfield there that I think is going to be the strength of the offense. Defensively, the linebacking trio of Clayton Call, Cole Pierce, and Sidney Houston is probably the defensive strength. They were all conference players last year. Clayton Call is a really big great leader. I think he's the team's overall leader, NFL prospect. I think they could. They're the kind of the glue that holds everything together on that side of the ball. So if the defense is going to be successful, it's going to be through them. I would say those are probably the surefire best players on the team. Defensive line could surprise people this year. I think they're deeper, but not anyone individually who's a superstar there. And then, of course, you got to talk about the tight ends. Ball State's two tight ends are two of the best in the country, honestly, pretty nationally recognized. Brady Hunt is on the Mackey Award watch list. Or maybe that's not the name of the list. I can't remember specifically. But yeah, he's really talented local product. Had a great first year last year. And then his backup even caught 7 touchdowns. And Tanner Koziel, who's more of a receiver converted tight end. He's really tall and lanky and lean. Brady Hunt is kind of questionable to play with an ankle injury. Not sure they would really push him too hard against an SEC opponent when they need him for those conference games. But if they both play, they're are one of the best tight end duos anyone could face.
That was actually going to be my next question. Was tell us a little bit more about Brady Hunt. He seemed like a stud tight end. As just a freshman last year, now a sophomore. So he's questionable to play this Saturday still.
Yeah, I mean, Ball State's being pretty tight-lipped about any injuries. As in, like I said, they have close practices now, so I can't really actually go see if he's practicing. I know he was in a walking boot late last week. I think he probably, because he missed last Wednesday's practice and wasn't in a boot, and then I think he must have aggravated it on last Friday's practice, and he was in a boot. And then I think he was in and out of one early this week, didn't practice on Tuesday. I'm not sure if he practiced yesterday. If I had to guess, I would say they're probably just waiting to test him today on Thursday to see where he's at. And then if he doesn't feel 100%, I'm sure they would just not risk it because we all know those ankle injuries can be really nagging. So probably best to just play it safe with him, like I said, for when the games matter a little bit more in conference play. But if he's healthy, he's a really, really talented guy, very athletic, has great size. I think he's someone who's definitely maybe the number one NFL prospect on the Ball State's roster.
Yeah, I would like to see him play, but if not, I'll just wait until some action hits in November and catch him on those Tuesday night games, maybe.
Absolutely.
So Ball State's head coach, Mike New.
Yes.
He on the hot seat this year?
It's a little bit hard for me to say just as someone who didn't cover the team more than 2 games last year as like a fill-in reporter. I know what he's done in his previous 7 seasons here. 2020 being a 7-1 season where they were MAC champions for the first time since '96, I believe. So I mean, he has had some recent success. Of course, I think, like I said, last year was a subpar year for the program. Talent-wise, they could have done better, but it's hard for me to say, like, if I didn't cover them on a week-to-week basis, like how much of it is on him and how much of it is just on players not executing. I think from a fan perspective, just from what I'm reading and what I've been told since I've got this job, some fans definitely feel he is on a bit of a hot seat, especially because if he has another year where, they underperform to what their talent is, maybe that would be a reason to look at maybe a new option. But I'm not so sure yet. I mean, they're not picked to finish highly this year, despite what I might think they might be slightly underrated. But so if they go 4-8 or 5-7 again, like, were they really projected to do better than that? Who's to say? I'm not sure that would be a cause for to move on quite yet. And he's a very nice guy, very well respected around Ball State athletics. He's a former player in the '90s, and then he's coached in the AFL and then in the NFL before taking over the Ball State program in 2016. So I would say maybe a little bit, but it just kind of depends on exactly how this year shakes out. If they do terribly, then yeah. If they do around 500 ball again, I think that he would probably get at least another year.
Okay. Yeah, I just noticed that like every year he had a losing record except for that 2020, and I didn't know. And I knew he was a former alum, so maybe that gives him a little bit longer leash. But
Hmm.
like you said, with the expectations,
Hmm.
if he stays there, then maybe he's not, on the hot seat
Yeah.
there.
And Ball State did also hire a new athletic director this past spring. So I'm not sure that might play into it, depending on if he feels he needs to kind of revamp the program in any way. But he's also a very nice guy. And I think they seem to have a good relationship so far. So um, I'm not quite sure how that would play into it, but that is just also something to note.
Yeah, so they're predicted to finish fifth in the MAC West. You had stated that you think that they may be a little underrated in that. Where
Hmm.
do you see them falling in the MAC?
Um, yeah, the cool thing about the MAC that I think makes it a very interesting conference is that, pretty much every team except for maybe like Toledo, which is like everyone's favorite in this conference, can, do well or do poorly. Like it can really go any way, any week, which I think makes it exciting. I can see them, so they're projected to finish fifth. I think it was in the coaches poll. I can see them, going up all the way to third, maybe even second if they have some crazy wins. I don't think an obscene projection, but then again, at the same time, like I think they could very easily fall into fifth if they continue some of those issues from last year where their red zone execution was poor. They were turning it over on their own side of the field. Their offense was very vanilla. I know that's something that fans have issue with, and that could be attributed to the coaching where they just don't see any creativity in the play calling. I'll have to see for myself, but I think those could be reasons that they could fall to fifth. But like I said, if their transfer quarterback is good and their running game is good, and I think their defense is definitely going to be pretty solid. I don't see why they couldn't also beat any of the teams that are projected in front of them.
So there's a couple of Lexington, Kentucky kids on the roster making their way back to Lexington this weekend. Any chance that they see the field in their hometown
Yeah,
Saturday?
so I think one of them is Horton, right? Running back
Yeah,
TJ Horton.
Horton. Yep.
Who else is on there? I can't remember off the top of my head.
There's the left guard Tristan Cook,
Hmm.
and then there's a linebacker as well. I can't remember the name. He went to Frederick Douglass along with Horton.
Nice. Well, I think Horton is someone who actually has really impressed me throughout camp.
Caden Johnson. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't think, barring injury, I don't think an offensive lineman will rotate in. I know that guy did not win the starting job, I believe, but Horton is someone I really liked in camp. Definitely had some flashes. And he did get on the starting depth chart, which didn't list every single player, obviously, but he was the fourth running back. I could see him rotating in a couple times, despite him being a freshman. I think he's got some good pass catching skills, and is kind of in the mold of their number three running back, Barfield, who did kind of have a minor injury throughout camp. So, maybe if they don't want to push him too hard, Horton could see a couple snaps. But yeah, good for those guys coming back to Kentucky. I'm sure that's just a cool kind of moment for them to play, at that level. I'm sure they'll have some family and friends in the stands, and hopefully, even just suiting up and being on the sidelines will be a good experience for them.
Absolutely. Kentucky's a 26.5 point favorite. You think Ball State will cover that?
Oof. Yeah, so this is I was thinking about this all week because they went to Tennessee to start their season last year, and obviously Tennessee was really good, but they lost 59-10.
Yeah.
So that was pretty absurd. I don't think Kentucky is on that level. You correct me if I'm wrong, but 26.5 feels right, but I could totally see it. Ball State really struggling against the defense to score. The offense looks very hit or miss throughout camp, in my opinion. And like I said, they get better towards the end. Um, but I'm just not sure they match up well with Kentucky. That has been a good defensive program. Despite their new guys in the secondary, I'm just not confident at this point that Ball State can really do anything offensively against them. So I think they will not cover if I was allowed to bet on that game. But you never know. Anything can happen. It's football, crazy special teams play, turnovers. And I think Ball State can run, so we'll see. But no, I don't think they will cover.
And I hate to agree with you on anything saying Tennessee's better than Kentucky at, but Tennessee's team last year was a pretty good team. Kentucky always starts out really slow to begin the season. Like for some reason, like their first couple of games, like UT Chattanooga or somebody like that will hang in with Kentucky for 3 quarters, and Kentucky will pull away at the end. Or in Eastern Kentucky, we'll take Kentucky down to the wire. So I can see Ball State hanging in for a little while,
Mm-hmm.
but I could see Kentucky covering like a low scoring, like you said, their offense. Ball State's offense isn't the best right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can see them getting maybe 3. With Kentucky's defense being so good, being like a 31-3 in Kentucky covering that way, but I don't see it being a huge beatdown just based off of history of Mark Stoops and how the season starts out for Kentucky football.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure what the over-under on total points is, but I might think the under would hit.
Yeah, I would probably go under on this game for sure.
Yeah.
So how could Ball State pull off an upset if they were to pull off one?
I think first and foremost they would have to establish the run early and then not get behind so much early where they had to stop running the ball. I really think that is something that they can do from day one this season. Like I said, with those 2 good running backs and a pretty veteran offensive line, and those tight ends. So I think, if they could get in some sort of rhythm and they don't fall behind super early where they're forced to throw the ball with, and they have all these new receivers that none of the starting receivers have ever caught a pass at Ball State. And I think of the 3 starters, only one of them has any D1 production, and that's pretty much 9 catches over 2 years. So we have no idea really what to expect of them, just from outside what I've seen at practice. So I just don't think if they get into that kind of pass-happy game plan, I don't think it's going to bode well. Obviously, if they want to keep it close, any defensive turnovers they can produce would be very helpful, of course. Ball State was not the best at that last year, but I think they're trying to be more of those like big play guys this year. I mean, they can say that all they want, of course. You have to see it in action, but I think that is a conscious thing. They should have a better pass rush, like I said, with a deeper defensive line, so maybe they could get a strip sack or something like that, or put them in better position to field a punt or something. I think their kicker is pretty decent, so those would be the ways I would think they could kind of keep it close. But I personally just would be shocked if they were able to go into the fourth quarter and have it be like a 1-possession game or like a 10-point game or something like that.
The season for Ball State starting out, you start out Kentucky, then you start out Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Who made that schedule? I mean, it's a rough couple of games to start your season off with.
Yeah, I think this was announced maybe 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, whenever they figured out they're going to be playing at Georgia. But I mean, cool experience. For the players. I had got a quote the other day from the linebacker about how he felt like a little bit of a little kid going into these SEC games, like growing up watching the best conference in college football. Now he gets to go experience the atmosphere a little bit. So I think that is neat. And of course, they'll get good money for a program for playing these huge schools. But yeah, certainly it's going to be a rough go to start the year. Hopefully no one gets hurt too bad or the confidence isn't shaken. I mean, we all know what Georgia can do, and I don't know what the spread on that game is going to be, but
probably more than 26.5.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy. I wish I was going. Unfortunately, I can't attend, but yeah, definitely a tough start for Ball State.
Yeah, but like you said, it'd be a good experience. The kids will probably love going and playing at Georgia, playing 2 SEC teams back to back like that. And just like you said, as long as they stay healthy, that's the main part. Stay healthy, get ready for that conference. If you get past those first 2 weeks, it's all good after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kentucky's scheduled to play at Ball State in 2027. Any chance that Kentucky actually travels to Muncie?
I mean, That's pretty cool, I guess. Hopefully Ball State Stadium gets a couple upgrades by then. I know they've had some problems with attendance the last few years. Like we haven't said, they haven't been the best program, and the one year they were great was COVID. So, hopefully by 2027, Ball State's football program's got a little more buzz around it if they do bring in a team like Kentucky.
Yeah, I know Kentucky had a couple of games like that. They were scheduled to go to Eastern Michigan. They ended up buying that game out, but they were scheduled to go to Southern Miss, and they actually went to Southern Miss a few years back. So I guess that's up in the air. I don't know. Maybe if Ball State, has a few good years, like you said, and fans start coming out, maybe they'll honor that game. Maybe they'll buy it out. I don't know.
I guess we'll see. That's a long ways away. I'm not even thinking about that.
Yeah, 2027. That's 4 years away. Yeah, that's a little while. But, man, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss here?
The one thing I was just kind of curious about is what you think of. We already talked about kind of what Kentucky's passing game may look like. Well, what do you think about their new running back? And I know they were the worst running team in the conference, I think, last year, or one of the worst, and they didn't score a lot of points. Do you think that's an area of their game that can really kind of also give Ball State some trouble?
I think it can now. We have transfer running back Ray Davis from Vanderbilt, and when Vanderbilt came into Lexington last year, they ran all over Kentucky. After that game, Mark Stoops was like, "All right, we need to get this guy, into our program." But I think that it's improved this year with him. Then they've got Ramon Jefferson. He tore his ACL the very first game last year. He was a transfer in as well. And then they have a passing back. They're little running backs. They're short, like 5'9", 5'10" running backs.
Mm-hmm.
So they, but I think they're going to throw the ball more than we're going to see the run. But Ray Davis would be a running back to look out for this weekend.
Okay. Yeah, because when I was looking that up, I was like, oh, that should be, at least on paper, a good boost. And I think people are saying the offensive line should be a little bit better, or at least they tried to address that. So I think would also be something that bodes well for Kentucky. So it sounds like, they could be poised for a good year overall.
Yeah, the offensive line was a big issue last year, but they went out and they got the left tackle from Northern Illinois, who Kentucky played last year as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if, you might want to tell Brady Hunt to watch out because that tight end room, next year, blue and white might not look bad on him. But and then they got a transfer from Alabama, but he's actually backing up one of our guards. And then we got a transfer from USC. So that offensive line has been revamped. Okay. And hopefully the results will show on the field. And with Ray Davis coming in from Vanderbilt, you would think, Vanderbilt. I mean, it's Vanderbilt. But this little dude can play. I mean, he's, like I said, he ate our defense's lunch last year. And I'm excited to see him out there in the blue and white this weekend.
For sure. Yeah. So it sounds like Kentucky likes to poach some of these MAC schools a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I said, they got, I mean, and, it's some of the best players on the team, that they're going after. So, like I said, just kind of watch out for they play Akron too. So if there's any key players on Akron coming up, it's a MAC school. Kentucky may be after him next year as well.
I don't blame them. I'm sure there's talent everywhere. So I think that was smart of them. But yeah, that was all I got. Should be a cool opening weekend, but we'll see if it's competitive or not. I'm not quite sure, but we'll see.
If it's competitive or not, at least football's back, and that's the best thing we could ask for.
Absolutely.
All right, Gus, I really appreciate you coming on to chat about some Ball State, Kentucky football this weekend. Check you out on Twitter if you want to give out your Twitter or your X handle, or whatever it's called these days.
Yeah, I think I'm just at Gus Martin _SP, which for the Star Press, which is I write for. So yeah, thanks for having me on. Absolute pleasure. I think this was the first podcast as a guest that I've done. So I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, man. Thank you.
All right,
Have
bye.
a good one.